The market has once again entered a resounding patch of it's all over. And realistically, the markets have had a bad time over the last kind of 72 hours or so. But is everything really kind of the doom that's being painted everywhere? We'll dive in and take a look. I think with BTC, where you have to start really here is the understanding of where we are higher time frames. Everybody at the moment is very much focused on the lower time frames. There's been a big drive up on the social side of things, which has caused more attention to the charts. It's caused more lower time frame following. And I'm not necessarily sure that's really conducive to a positive trading outcome for a lot of people. We've seen people being overly emotional to some of the moves that we've been seeing. We've been seeing people obviously getting chopped up and having a bad time when it comes to actually trading and engaging in the markets. We've seen spot buyers in a very sticky situation. But realistically, the BTC side of things from the higher time frame, like not a lot has changed. Okay, like we've run up here into the fresh high. We've moved into kind of this resistance territory that we're beginning to unpick and discover is this resistance territory around 106,000, and we're now moving back down towards a midpoint over here. From a weekly time frame, you also have this setup here, which again is nothing. You cannot look at this and say this is 100% a top here. There's no indication of that. Now, you can use whatever kind of like, market factors psychologically or events wise to try and trigger some kind of deeper understanding. But there's nothing on a technical side that points to this being a top. And just because we've started the week having a couple of days of selling, yesterday and Sunday, opening up the markets today, you've had obviously kind of, the news that's filtered through the markets as well from China. So, but there's nothing here that indicates that this is now suddenly a top, and there's no further justification or validation just because we've had a couple of days of selling. I've already seen like bears doing victory laps today. Like, there's no fucking victory here. Like, Bitcoin's still 99,000. There's no fucking victory to be had. And from my perspective, calling top on this is essentially equivalent of calling top here. And this is where we are. That's the situation that we're in right now. It's basically just this, but further along. It's exactly the same setup here. Okay, this area here, this is where we are. Okay, and now obviously the outcomes that we have from here are continuing the choppiness, or we're going to end up impulsing through this and continue trading to the upside. But from my perspective, this is where we are. Now, are we going to get a longer patch of consolidation? Maybe. That's potentially on the cards. We've already said that if the weekly failed to close above the prior high, then we would be looking towards more of this kind of range lock structure. I don't need to draw that out because I've actually got it saved under here, so we can just pull this up and go straight in here. And, probably this is what we're looking at the moment in terms of where we are and how we're trading. At the moment, at the time of recording this, obviously, we're moving down into one of the more well-respected areas on the chart, which is just through here. So we can see this midpoint here around 98, 97,000 seems to be a pretty good reaction zone for BTC across this range. But this is where we are. This is the higher time frame range. BTC is still range bound. It failed to break the previous high. No massive deal. We've had a couple of days of selling here, or at least a more aggressive 12-hour period of selling. And that's it. Like, there's no reason to be overly emotional about the market price action here. BTC is chopping. Now, alts, on the other hand, and where the emotion really stems from, alts are having a really bad time. So alts are pretty much getting fucked over here. And you can look through the list. BTC down 3.5%, BTC DOM up 2.5%, rest of the market rancid. Okay, it's getting fucked over. Now, the majority of the aggression and the upset and the emotional feelings stem from the fact that the majority of people are exposed here and not exposed to BTC. So while we can talk about BTC looking fine, the alt side of things looks the complete opposite for us. Now, we'll start off with ETH as kind of, the mother of the alts and what will be the kind of one of the guiding factors for us. And ETH's poor performance through here just continues. I was memeing the diagonal through the weekend down here, basically just to give us some kind of overall thought about momentum or when we might see a slowdown to the selling. Not yet happened, started to impulse down again. Now, one of the untested regions that we have for ETH is around 2,700. And that has always been the point, that if this sweep of the untested lows, which was over here, fails, which at the moment, based on the current daily and the current time of recording, looks as though it is failing, then we would be looking down towards 2,700 as this being a major area where ETH hasn't retested after breaking out. Trading below 2,700 is probably not worth thinking about because the situation in the environment would be pretty fucked by that point. But 2,700 is our next significant region. Another 10% lower on ETH, taking us to that region. Now, again, in line with what I was discussing later last week, the higher timeframes again for ETH are still okay. You know, it may feel pretty fucking bad out there right now, but actually this higher timeframe structure is still fine. This is still a fresh weekly high on ETH. The trade into 2,700 would still be a higher low for ETH, and we've got a range of higher timeframe confluent factors coming together to give this some support through there. I think ETH at 2,700, if it makes it there, is a really nice opportunity zone. You know, it's one that the risk reward is very easily defined, very easily set out, and it's an area that I would be looking at participating in spot ETH for sure. I think that area is a really, really sensible zone. And then we'll quickly cover off Sol as well, because obviously Sol is another market that, you know, we kind of been doing that trifecta comparison. We're still failing to get above this 250 level on a weekly close, so we didn't manage that, obviously, with the aggression that was shown on Sunday. Didn't manage to get above that, continued to sell off today. A lot of people looking at the tightening of this range through here, which has unfortunately broken to the downside, and we're now moving into the retest zone around the 220s, which again, from a Sol perspective, has seen a lot of action previously. So you can see all the way through this zone here, we've seen quite a lot of action around this kind of 220 region here, acting as resistance, as support, as resistance and resistance, and now here back into 220s again. So we'll be looking for some stabilization here, but keeping in mind that the higher time frames, this has done a, you know, near 80% move over the course of a week. And this is a correction, and it's a perfectly fine correction, and it's a correction that doesn't derail us and throw us into the market has now top territory. Sol went ahead and made a fresh all-time high, and it's now correcting from that. Right? Let's not over dramatize everything just because the lower time frames are red today. And that really is the key point of the discussion today. You know, there's going to be a lot of celebration on the timeline about bears, and there's going to be a lot of kind of ridicule of people who were bullish, and fuck all's happened in the market. Nothing has gone on in this market. Yes, alts are red again today. Higher time frame picture, nothing's really changed. It's all well within expectations in terms of what we've seen the market do and what we're doing now. Sol being a prime example. We traded 80% higher into a fresh all-time high, and we've now correct off that high. Market structure is still trending upwards. BTC, weekly time frame, we're still in an uptrend. We're just chopping and consolidating in that region. Like, I think the market is really, really reactive. A big problem you have on the alt side of things, and the real area and the cause of concern for people, is that fear and panic truly does spread, okay? It's an absolute plague across the markets. And when you're dealing in less liquid markets, where you've got lots of buyers who are feeling emotional and fearful, then there's a very good chance that prices continue lower. Okay, because that starts to spread out. Now, when you also start adding in the liquidity of some of the shitters that people are playing on chain, you've got a situation where things can get nasty really quickly. Right? So there's a number of kind of thoughts in there from a market psychology and actioning perspective that are really going to shape the way and the direction this market's going to move. Alts are suffering. BTC is still doing pretty much fine up here. And then the last one that we'll cover off, which I just really like, is Fartcoin here. And I like this because of the level of volatility that we get in this coin. So we can see here that I've mapped out a couple of previous big sell-offs on Fartcoin, which have been like 55, 58% through these zones. Now, this is actually the most significant and the worst sell-offs that we've seen over the last three. So this one here, we're already down to the 60, 68% region. And, you know, obviously pretty pukey in terms of the price action, certainly over the course of the last 8 days or so. This area down here is the really interesting one for me. There's actually two zones here. Okay, so you've got Fartcoin trading down below the lows that it established in this period here, which is all the way back in December. And I think anything that sweeps through the 54s and sub 50 is a really interesting opportunity for this market, because it just takes out everything. It takes out 2 months of uptrend, And that for me will seem like a really good opportunity to be able to trade this back to the upside. And the second one is down here at 40. Now, if things get really bad, then I think this 40 zone is a really good region. It's just the prior highs that we experienced through November and would be a great area. The other kind of technical kind of confluence for that is the fact that if it gets down to this sweep zone, that's an 80% correction. 80% correction in any market is pretty decent for us. There's enough mind share, there's enough community, there's enough discussion on Twitter around this absolute phenomenon of Fartcoin that, you know, it's not like you're buying a dead meme when you start looking at positioning into something like this. And so I think that this market also sets up incredibly well for some action. Maybe we'll do one more. We'll quickly cover off hype as well, because that's a really nice one to cover off. And there's you'll see my scribbles on here as I'm in a short position currently on hype, but this is what I'm looking for, and it's the simplicity of this market that really makes things more attractive from my side. So what we've got here is the resistance zone after trying to break through this 27 and failing to do so, and 23, 24 still being this really sticky point for us on hype. So failing to get back through there after falling back underneath the resistance level, retesting it a few times, and now starting to impulse away. What we've got through here is just a range of lows that haven't been run, and specifically this area here at 19. Like this area here has just got all of these clean lows down at this region. We've got this low and we've got this low. And I think that this now just becomes the target region. I think sub 20 again, and we're looking for that run into the kind of 1918s. Depending on how the rest of the market fares, obviously we can look back towards the daily and we can start looking back towards the 15 zone should things get really bad. But apart from that, I think that hype through here, we can see if I just get the clean chart up for you, which is down the bottom from this morning. This is kind of the higher time frame view that I think is kind of the simplest for hype through here. You've got support region at 20. We've never closed a daily sub 20. So any closes below 20, and obviously we're looking for the sweep first and foremost at 18, and then potentially worst case scenario at 15, worst case for now. And we've got this resistance here at 24. So we're locked in this daily region here. This is our range. Again, we'd be looking for the potential of this breaking down. If 20 holds, that's a really good sign for the bulls, especially if the market can start to get some momentum back to the upside and start to change the current trajectory. But as it stands, I think there's like several markets which make it really attractive to try and trade. Fartcoin for the volatility, hype for the simplicity, BTC for the strength. I think they're the markets that you can really look at focusing in on trading-wise in order to set yourself up really nicely. But really, like, chill on the emotion. BTC in a higher time frame range. Sol made a fresh all-time high before correcting. Like, there's a lot of panic and fear for not a lot of technical reason. There's a lot of posturing from the bears. There's a lot of kind of claiming victory just because we're down again on a Monday. Chill.